This morning I'm pleased to introduce Andy, who has spoken to us once before. Andy is an outstanding sales trainer who brings the classics into his philosophy and approach, which makes him a little bit unique. I've stolen a couple of stories from him over the years to
Good.
use in my career tips because they were such good um, little uh, anecdotes that they fit really well with what I'm doing, and has been very impressed with what he's been able to do in his career, building his urgency-based selling method. And I'm sure he will share more about that, and I'll share some links after we're all done. So, without it further ado, Andy, take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, John. And I want to say thank you to the group. Um, I have a hard stop at 8:25, so let's see what we can get done before then. Let's see if we can get it started for openers. So today's talk is about 7 ideas to open new conversations and new customers faster. And the focus is on what pure selling could do, as opposed to, designing a better product. What can selling do? And to give you a vision statement, I think there's pretty universal agreement that we would like to be trusted advisors of respect. We want people to respect us. And so the techniques I'm going to show you, one way to frame them is they're geared to getting us to that position faster. And the frustration and the problem we face is that we're coming in and there's an incumbent vendor or advisor who's the trusted advisor. And so they're rolling the ball downhill. We have to kick it uphill. And what we're trying to do is level the playing field so that either we supplant that other trusted advisor or they invite us in as a second trusted advisor. So that's like the vision that underlies the work I do. And I've done this for over 30 years. I've worked with over 180 clients. And I think this works pretty well for motivating folks because I don't think I've ever met somebody who doesn't want to be a trusted advisor. So the challenge we face is how do we get there before experience? So sometimes I'll ask a salesperson, how do you become a trusted advisor? And a response might be, well, I get a little bit of business, then I get a little bit more. And in 3 to 5 years, maybe I get accepted as a trusted advisor. And the problem with that approach is you're never going to get on the playing field with many clients if that's your mindset. We have to be on the road to trusted advisor before experience. As a matter of fact, if you invite me back for another one, I've worked out, you already promoted this, so I didn't want to change it. But in the interim, I've worked out a 15-minute executive briefing that is revolutionary. After almost every one of these presentations, I've done 21 of them so far. I'm like a trusted advisor or on the road. Another way to frame this is, can we time pace trust or advisor status? So what is time pacing? Time pacing is making a process happen faster. It was kind of promoted and revolutionized by 3M in the late 1980s and early 1990s when they took this position. They weren't waiting for their brands like Scotch tape and Post-it notes to become a buggy whip, which is economics jargon for an obsolete product. They started creating the future faster by setting the standard that 30% of their profits had to come from businesses that didn't exist 5 years ago. That's time pacing. By the way, if you're interested in strategy reads, if you're a futurist or you want to study this, great read on strategies to see into the future competing on the edge. So we're going to talk about ways to time pace trusted advisor relationships. Now, the program, urgency based selling, was born in a crisis. I worked for a company a long time ago, about the time of Noah's Ark, that made this product. It's an obsolete product. It's a lard can. They acquired a factory that made this, and the assignment was to turn it into a decorative tin. So I decided to propose, and they accepted the idea of outsourcing. I was doing this part-time for the company. They outsourced it to me. I became a commission sales rep working on commissions. And I thought I had it made because they turned over existing accounts to me. It was an orphan product, nobody was selling it. So I thought I had it made. But within 3 months, see, I thought there was recurring revenue that was turned over to me. Within 3 months, the biggest customer dropped the item, 80% of sales. So I went from a position of recurring revenue and I was set to I was scrambling. And this is how I discovered for myself the do or die principle. So, really, everything I'm about to show you now comes from this crisis. And I could tell you at the time I went through it, it was, and you'll hear more about it in a moment, it was terrible. But I've gone through other crises in the last 30 years since I started my first business. And I have found the crises to be a strategic resource. In other words, I find that I have a competitive advantage over my competition, even when they're the incumbent, as you will see. So I went from a position of being having recurring revenue. It's made. I'm going to make a lot of money. To I was scrambling. I was losing money. Cash flow's going out the door, and I don't really know how to sell yet. Well, maybe I don't know how to sell now, but now I could teach you 150 best practices. Then I couldn't. And in the second year of the business, I found Bunty Candy. That's their factory. They made candy. They put them in the decorative tins. They shipped them to customers. They bought $1 million worth. If I could close this account, my business would take off. I called on the buyer, and the buyer said, "We're good. We're buying from General Can, your competitor. We've been buying from them for 5 years." And at that point, I didn't know what to do. That was a tough year. That second year, money's going out the door. My savings are declining. In March of that year, after the Bunty Candy debacle, my wife, pregnant with our second child, who's now fine, by the way, had to go on bed rest, a tough pregnancy. We lost her income and insurance. In the summer of that year, I live in New Jersey, as I think most of you do. In the summer of that year, the engine had cracked on my car, and I didn't have a car. I was in emotional free fall. If you've ever seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, think of George Bailey at the bridge, but I don't have Clarence to jump in and divert me. So I don't know what to do. I'm facing failure. And time permitting, in the next few minutes, if we have time, I'll tell you how I solved this problem, and it led to 10x growth. So the first of the 7 ideas to solve this kind of problem is I got 4 transformational words. If you're having a tough day, week, month, year, and you haven't already absorbed these 4 words, it'll transform your life. Bold vision, bold behavior. Are you bold enough in your vision? Are you bold enough in your behavior? An example. Um, After I solved that problem with Bunty Candy and my business took off, about 10 years later, I hired a new accounting firm. And they invited me in to watch a presentation on one of their tier two products. So there were 7 partners. And after I saw this 1 hour presentation at my new accounting firm, I asked the named partner who led the presentation, Bert, is this how you normally sell? And he said, yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it? And I said, gee, I thought it needed work. So I thought this over for a couple of weeks. I called Bert and I said, Bert, you and your 6 partners in your CPA firm, you need to hire me to teach you how to sell. I don't know what you know about CPAs. Are they wild, crazy risk takers? Well, they liked some of my ideas, so they invited me in, and we had a, you know, we I had a meeting with the 3 named partners, and this is how the highlights of the meeting went. So, Andy, have you ever done this for a CPA firm? No. Do you have some testimonials from folks for whom you've done this program you're proposing that shows your competence? No. Have you ever done this at any time, anywhere, for anybody? No. Do you have some curriculum you could show us to give us an idea of what you would teach us if we hire you? No. Then what makes you think you could do this? I said, well, you presented to me, it was like this, and it could be like this. And, I could fill the gap. Crazy, right? But they liked my idea, so they proposed a test. They brought me out on a sales call, 2 named partners trying to close the owner of a manufacturing firm. My instructions were to look, listen, zip my lips. We'll debrief afterwards. For the first hour of the presentation, I followed my instructions. And then I couldn't take it anymore. I raised my hand. The partners in the CPA firm melted. But the owner said, gee, I wondered if you were going to say anything. I asked 2 questions and I closed the sale. And about a month later, they hired me. This is a front page article in Accounting Today that talks about our experience. This over here is Bert, and this is me when I was younger and handsomer. So in the time we worked together, 6 months, their closing ratio went from 20% to 80%. And the takeaway again of these 4 words, bold vision, bold behavior. If you're not getting what you want in a situation, were you bold enough in your vision? Were you bold enough in your behavior? Second idea comes from Good to Great by Collins, level 5 leadership. It's a mindset thing. Are you a level 5 leader? A level 5 leader is competent, strong, and humble at the same time. Wait a second, Andy. Aren't you either competent or humble? In an earlier book, Collins and Porras call that the tyranny of the or. And he gives a great metaphor in Good to Great as to how to get to this mindset. When things go well, look outside the window and give credit to the team. When things don't go well, look in the mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done differently? In a dysfunctional company or leadership, these things are reversed. When things go well, you pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I'm pretty good. When things don't go well, you look outside the window and see who can you blame. Using the mirror properly is the opposite of learned helplessness. My standard is to test 5 new ideas a week, and most of them are junk. And I got this big garbage can, but keep on testing new ideas, taking ownership. So, are you supporting innovation? A major prospect vanishes after a great first meeting. Radio silence. Why does this happen? You're being treated as an option. Well, what does that mean? They had the meeting to learn from you and they don't need any more information. So if you call when you're selling, this is the third idea, there's no need to talk to us. But if you bring wisdom, it's another matter. So the third idea is, are you always leading with wisdom? This is sometimes called type 3 knowledge. Type 1 is what we know, type 2 is what we know we don't know, and type 3 is what we don't realize we don't know. So when you plan any meeting with anybody, what's the wisdom you're bringing to the meeting? Now, it's way beyond what I could do here today, but there's three parts to your standard sales call. 1 to 7 sets up the conversation. 8 to 12 is your fact finding. 13 to 18 manages the opportunity. So you start with wisdom, which hopefully makes them open to your bold vision. And you measure your success by closing or your PIK. Your PIK, your payment in kind, is how do you move it forward? What did they do? Did they introduce you to the CEO? Did they fill out a credit application? For every meeting, your planning includes what's the wisdom, what's the PIK. Magic moment of access. What do you do in the magic moment of access? This is when you have customers or even a center of influence. So you confirm they're delighted, they don't have any needs, you have a magic moment of access. What do you do in that moment? If they're not buying everything that you offer, you might break the pigeonhole in that moment. Ask, can you buy B instead of the A? But in addition, you look for an introduction. This is really important because your big fans are the superhighway to your growth. So before you meet with somebody, you might look at their LinkedIn. You should always link in with somebody. Look at their first connections and see who do you want to meet. Because if you're in a magic moment of access, you want to ask them, can you introduce me to A, B, or C? This is one of your strongest selling assets. Idea number 5, better qualification. I've already alluded to the principle of the payment in kind. It's what the prospect does to show that he or she is engaged in the process. They might introduce you to another decision maker, fill out a credit application, invite us back for another meeting, visit our facility, give us a tour of their facility. The PIK decision rule is go for the strongest PIK to which you've earned the right. So, are you using the PIK standard to evaluate your pipeline? Is it real or not? And this is a really important question. How did you earn the right? Were you bold enough in your vision? Were you bold enough in your behavior? Did you bring wisdom? Idea 6. The core of selling is the prospect is on a false summit. They're on the lower hill looking down. We're on the higher hill. We help them look up. That's the core of persuasion. That's how we earn the right to access. That's how we get moral certainty for what we do. So when you plan any meeting, this is idea 6, always ask yourself, what's the vision you're going to offer the higher peak of well-being? Let's look at a couple from, oh, we don't have it here. Okay. The last idea is better discovery. If you do talk to somebody, are you discovering the why and the why now? The why now is the internal urgency. For instance, I'm buying from you because the other guy ships late. The why now is the external urgency. What's the trigger event? What happened that caused them to buy now? Well, yes, they've been shipping late for years, but last week your competitor shipped late and we lost Walmart as a customer. It's the money question. That's the why now question. So powerful messaging drives the internal urgency. For instance, billing and collecting customer. Our clients grow 20% faster. Advertise in our magazine. 30% of our physician readers keep the magazine by the computer. Client who sold $130,000 gas analyzer machines needed for 24/7 process production, 99% uptime. So, what is the powerful vision statement that's quantified that you offer? All right, I'm going to have to wrap it up in a minute or so because I ran a little longer. I apologize. But I want to give you one more powerful technique. At the end of every meeting, ask, what were your takeaways? And then, if the prospect expresses interest in learning more, do you want to do this on a fast track or a back burner basis? Fast track or back burner? We're shooting for fast track, and that sets up the PIK. Well, if you want to do this on fast track, we have to do it in this way. This is an urgency technique. What were your takeaways? Fast track or back burner? Here's what we need to do. Okay, a wrap up. Return to Bunty Candy. Buyer said we're good, right? What are we going to do? I ask myself, who's the real decision maker? It's not Bunty because it's going somewhere else. So with my last money, when I was struggling, I took my bold vision. These are Coke Santa images I had access to. And I decided that the real decision maker was a food buyer at a major retailer. I sent out this imagery to 400 food buyers. I got lucky. I wouldn't tell this story. One showed interest. Can you think of who it was? It was Walmart, and they wanted it now, right now. I went down to Bentonville 20 times. My business grew up. I grew 10 times from this bold vision, bold behavior. So here's a quick recap on what pure selling can do. Bold vision, bold behavior, level 5 leadership, bring wisdom to each meeting. This presentation is meant to be wisdom. Ask for introductions in the magic moment of access. Better qualification with PIKs. Show the fall summit for the bold vision. And better discovery, use the 3-step method. Fast track or back burner. Well, we all know Rome wasn't built in a day. I wish I had time for questions, but I don't because I'm on stage in 3 minutes. Elsewhere, if you liked it, if you bring me back, I'll take questions and I'll show you an amazing transformational 15-minute executive briefing. I'm sorry, John, I've got to run
No,
because I'm about to
understood. You
start
have a
teaching
client.
another group. So if you want to send me questions, John will give you my email address. Okay. But for now, if I don't get off this meeting and join another meeting, I'm in deep trouble. So I'm going to say goodbye. So thank you
Great.
for this opportunity, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andy.
Bye bye now. I have to figure out. Oh, there we go. Leave meeting.
Well, let me turn off the recording.